Welcome to the Colors of Prog. This is a special edition show, sort of off the schedule. Wanted to cover as much as possible this box set. This is the Krautrock and Progressive Box Set, The Secret Archives. This comes from Mexico, which I find very interesting because in the various states that I lived and the various cities that I visited, um, South Americans and Mexicans seem more to be in hard rock and metal, all forms of metal, and they're very big fans. Um, Not saying that all Mexicans and all South Americans like primarily metal, but I do find that they're really big into metal. It's a big thing. There are some prog bands from South America and Mexico, and they have released material, and they do play internationally at times. But that's where this box set originated, not from Europe and not from the States, so I found that very interesting. So what is on this 6 CD set? So I'm going to try to quickly tell you that the information on the internet about this box set is minimal at least. And someone, more than one person, has taken the time to put on the Amazon listing for this, by the way, it was very reasonably priced, incorrect information. I think they got it confused with other prog rock box sets. One thing is, I do have always had an issue with the term krautrock, primarily addressing music from Germany, um, experimental, progressive mixture of such, art rock. But that's the term that's stuck with that music over time. So, quickly, so the first track on this is from a band called Affinity. The song is called I Am and So Are You. I've only been able to locate information that they were a British jazz rock psychedelic band that existed between 68 and 72. Take what you can from that. Next is a band called East of Eden. This is all disc 1, by the way. Bradshaw the Bison Hunter. This is definitely a progressive band. They existed from 67 to 78 and then 96. They only recorded singles, and there are 1 or 2 compilations of their singles that exist. The Amen Corner is next with Satanist Nick the Job's Worth. What a title, it's a mouthful. We're a Welsh psychedelic pop band that existed for only 3 years, 66 to 69. Andy Fairweather-Low was the vocalist. Later became more well known as a guitar player. He eventually worked with Eric Clapton and many others. Blue Weaver was the keyboard player for the Amen Corner. He later is more well known for joining Monte Hoople and the Straws. Yes. This song is kind of proggy with pop leanings. Next we have Egg, A Visit to Newport. Hospital's a tune. They're a British band. They were on the Canterbury scene, Caravan, Camel, that sort of sound. They existed from 68 to 72, featured Dave Stewart, not the David Stewart from the Rhythmics. This is a different Dave Stewart. This David Stewart later was in Hatfield in the North, a band that has a great, large following. But I find their music sort of like the band Lindisfarne, kind of folky, poppy, and proggy at the same time. But anyway, so this was Egg. Hammer is next. Death of a King is the song. They're a U.S. band, 1970. They only recorded 1 album from which this track comes from. They were out of San Francisco in the U.S. They're a psychedelic band with touches of prog. That's where this song comes from. Andromeda is next with Return to Sanity. Great song title. They were a British psychedelic progressive band. Again, they only existed for 3 years, 66 to 69. John Ducan was the vocalist and guitar player. This is of note because he joined Atomic Rooster after the demise of this band, and I have to assume that this song, Return to Sanity, came off of singles and probably their one lone album, of which you can find not too much about. Bearded Lady, yes, that's their name, comes next with Midnight Flight. They were a U.S. band, hard rock band. They existed in the early 1970s. They only did one album. There was no one of note in that band that I care to mention. Fuchsia, Me and Mccarty. They were a British prog band. Only recorded one album in 1971. That they toured a lot, and enough for them to reunite in 2005, 13, and 17. And that was Fuchsia. Consortium, or Consortium, you decide, are next with a song called We're. They were a British band from 67 to 70. They only recorded singles, but stayed together as a touring band, believe it or not, until 1980. Of course, various members came in and out of the band at that time. That was Fuchsia. Now we have Atomic Rooster itself. So we have John Ducan, Vincent Crane, Chris Farlow, the British blues singer, R&B singer, and also worked in Prague, Ginger Baker from Cream. They were all in this band, in and out of it, Atomic Rooster, at many points in time over the years. They only did about 2 to 3 albums and then 1 to 2 live albums. They took Control Over You as the song, and Ducan, who was on the Andromeda song I mentioned earlier, is in this version of Atomic Rooster, which I found interesting. Yes, I have notes. Harmonia Disc Two is our first German group that appears on this. Harmonia, the song is called Dino. They existed from 73 to 76, and they feature members of the German band Cluster. Hans Joachim Rodelius and Dieter Mobius, and New, N-E-U exclamation point, that was his thing. He was also Michael Rother from New, appeared in this. They only recorded 2 albums and dissolved, although members of Harmonia appeared in other bands who actually appear later on in this compilation. La Dusseldorf is next, another German band, and the song is called La Dusseldorf. They existed from 76 to 83, reunited in 2001 through 2008. They featured New, N-E-U exclamation point, new guitar player. Sorry about that. It featured new guitarist Michael Rother, Kraftwerk drummer Klaus Dinger, and this and other members of other German bands. They only existed for a short time as a recording entity, if you think about it, but they were hailed by Brian Eno and David Byrne as forerunners of a new sound, pre-Kraftwerk sound, melodic and percussive. Is it prog? I would say so. Andromeda are back. I mentioned them earlier with a song called Too Old. Andromeda was a band where members became members of Atomic Rooster later on. The song's okay. It's not very proggy. Consortium or Consortium are back with 13th Hour. Again, a British band that existed for a short period of time who had a lot of singles, but not so much made a big impression, hence members ended up in other bands. Axis is next with Bad Trip. U.S. band featured Vinny Appice, and he ended up joining Rick Derringer later on after the collapse of this band. He was part of the band And, who supported Johnny Winter in Johnny Winter's End. I think there's a live album and possibly a studio album. So it's funny that Axis really was only around the early 1970s, but most of the members of the band Axis rejoined Rick Derringer later on, and they were in Rick Derringer's touring band. And then members later joined John K. Steppenwolf in the early 90s. It's a hard rock song. It's melodic, it's kind of forgettable, but the information was worth mentioning. Greenslade is next, definitely more proggy. It's called Running From Your Love, or Running From Your Love. Greenslade were a British band, 72 to 77, 2000, 2003. They started out as a jazz band. They had two keyboard players, Dave Greenslade and Dave Lawson. And the original bass player was Tony Reeves in 73. He was replaced by Martin Briley, who later on went to become a hit songwriter. Simon Phillips was in and out of the band during these many periods of time that Greenslade existed. They are well liked in the prog and jazz rock field. They tend to have a folky sound as well. This song didn't blow me away, but it's interesting that it appears on this compilation. Matthew Fisher, Tales of Spain is the song. Now, he's interesting. He was a keyboardist and producer and claimed to have co-written A Wider Shade of Pale. And he actually took Procol Harum to court and received his credit in the late 2000s due to a court verdict. He was also in Screamin' Lord Sutch's band. Jack the Ripper was Screamin' Lord Sutch's big hit, if you can call it that. As a producer, Matthew Fisher produced Robin Trower's Bridge of Sighs and For Earth Below, so keeping that Procol Harum connection there. The song's okay. It's kind of poppy with elements of prog in it, nothing too overt. Jim Mccarty is next, The Outsider's the song. He was the original drummer for the Yardbirds. He later became a guitar player, I guess, after they went through Beck, Page, Clapton. And he's still a guitar player with the Yardbirds. This was most likely recorded as a single. Supposedly former Yardbird Keith Relf appears on the song, The Outsider. I'm not sure who the actual singer is. They tried to become a duo at some point, 1968 I believe, so it's more pop rock than it would be prog, but it's interesting, it has interesting time signatures on it. The Clark Hutchinson Band is next, Impromptu in E minor. Clark Hutchinson and Andy Clark were the primary members of this band, hence the band's name. They were active in 1968 only, apparently, from what I could tell. They were very proggy. Their sound was progressive, jazz, hints of psychedelic, a little bit Indian raga sound in there as well. They too have fans. They don't have a lot of recorded work out there, but I think enough that they have a bit of a following. Onto disc 3 is John Gustafsson, Poem About a Gnome. So you can tell it's psychedelic and hint of prog in there alone. He was a British session musician who, in his time out there, he worked with Roxy Music, touring versions, and he's appeared on a number of albums with Roxy. That's his bass on Love is the Drug, believe it or not. That very cool percussive sound. He was also in Beatlesque Mercy Beat bands. He was in the band Quatermass as a full-time member, and I believe, he only did one album, but they toured quite a bit, 70, 71. This song, though, credit to John Gustafsson, I believe is from the one and lone Quatermass album. So that was Poem About a Gnome. Mogul Trash, actually Mogul Thrash. Take it what you want. Song is Dreams of Glass and Sand. They were a British progressive rock band. They only released one album in 1971. Band members included John Wetton, and Brian Auger, who plays on at least one track of their one lone album. This song, Dreams of Glass and Sand, is taken from that album. Carmen is next. The song is called Stepping Stone, and spelled out without the G as one word, Stepping Stone. They're a British-American band, active from 70 to 75. And interestingly enough, they worked with Bowie and Brian Ferry. They appeared on Bowie's Midnight Special 1984 floor show, and one of the members, John Glasscock, bass player, joined Jethro Tull and appears on Too Old to Rock and Roll. So there's a lot of progressive rock associations going on here. Stepping Stone comes from Fandangos in Space, 1973, their debut album. They only recorded 3 as Carmen. And there's a hint of Latin in here. I would almost say flamenco sounding in the guitar playing. So Carmen's an interesting band. Great if you ever wanted to hear some Carmen stuff, because really, where could you find this? Atomic Rooster again appears. I mentioned them earlier. Lost in Space is the tune. Then we're next followed by another Greenslade tune called Anthems. Since I already mentioned these bands and the personnel, I won't go into much if the bands reappear. Matthew Fisher again makes a very poppy appearance on this Krautrock Progressive set. But Can't You Feel My Love? I think if this was a later 1970s, early 80s song, this would have been a true hit. Maybe it was hoping for one, but I think this tune comes from very early in the 1970s, possibly late 60s, and at the time that was not the thing. Broken Home, the band, follows next with a tune called Rainbow Bridge. And they're one of the later bands to be that appear on this box set. Broken Home came into being after Mr. Big, kind of popular 70s hard rock band, kind of ended. And this song certainly sounds of the period. This is from their second album, 1981's Life. Agitation Free with Khan El Khalil is next. They're a German band. Finally, another German band appears, featuring Christopher Frank of Tangerine Dream. And Agitation Free existed between 67 and 74, 98 and 2007. Think space rock and psychedelia. And this comes from their 1972 album, Mellish. Johnny Warman is next with Laughing Academy. He's a member of the band Bearded Lady, who I mentioned earlier on the song here. He had a solo career that was sporadic, and he, as a guitar player, kept trying to, appeared in other bands, but no band that ever was of renown. His last appearance of note was in the 2002 Steve Marriott tribute concert as an additional guitar player. Cluster is next. Electric Music Untexted. German experimental avant-garde band. Think sort of a mix of Tangerine Dream, Hawkwind, and Can. Dieter Mobius was the most well-known member of this band, and they existed from 69 to 71, and again reunited 2007 to 2011. This is one of the more difficult to listen tunes on this box set, probably because of the combination of sounds of the influenced music that appears on here. We're already up to disc 4 with the band Jerusalem. Puppet King is the song. They're a hard rock band from Britain. There was also a neo-Christian metal prog band from Sweden with the same name from the 80s. That's not this Jerusalem. This is from their one album, produced by Ian Gillan of Deep Purple fame, so that's interesting. I think he really saw in them a sort of Deep Purple light, hence he produced this album for them. Aardvark, Copper Sunset is the tune. They were an obscure British prog band. They only recorded one album in 1970. Band members would go on to be supporting musicians with Al Stewart, Quiver, and Natural Gas. Copper Sunset, if you're looking for aardvark material, does appear here. Beggars Opera is our next band. Passaglia, very Italian named song for a Scottish prog band. They were active from 69 to 76, and at the time, they were compared to The Nice and Deep Purple. I really don't hear those influences or similar sounds in this one song. This is from the 1969 album, and supposedly, whether it's true or not, the song was influenced by Handel, the classical composer. Again, take away from that what you will. Next, we had a band called One, and the song was called Don't Listen to Me, and we don't have an option. There was no information I could find on this band. Johnny Warman, who I mentioned earlier, shows up with War of the Worlds again. Manny Colton appears with Strength of Strings. This is one of the later recorded songs that appear on this box set. This is from 2014 as far as I can tell. And he was the lead singer, he was the band leader of the once popular group Nazareth. So, interesting, many years later on, he reappears, and whether this is from an album or singles, again, I'm not sure. Mike Diabo shows up on this, and the song is called Relax. He's a former leader of Man for Man, 66 to 69, very active as a songwriter, as well as an actor. As an actor-singer, he toured with Jesus Christ Superstar. He played Herod. He also wrote songs that were very popular by other artists. Not that he didn't record them himself, but other people like Chris Farlow and Rod Stewart, Handbags and Glad Rags, or Gland Bags and Hand Rags, your choice. They had big hits with his stuff. He's still active, and he's made occasional personal appearances in recent years. Walter Weissmuller appears next with Die Stern. Interesting choice. This German artist was an illustrator of tarot cards. This is true. In 1972, he hired musician Klaus Schultz and members of Ashwa Temple to work on his lone album, Tarot. This tune comes to the album. What does it sound like? If Walter Weissmuller actually stayed around as a recording artist, he could have had a bit of a career. It's very spacey yet heavy. So hence, I guess you could call it krautrock. It might even appear in some online or written volumes, books, whatever, that mention that kind of sound. I found it very interesting. Ashcan, next with Darkness. They're a very obscure British band, kind of bluesy hard rock, I thought this song was. They recorded one album in 1970 called In From the Cold, and this is where the song comes from, Darkness. The leader was Bob Weston. He was an American. He played alongside Danny Curran and Bob Welch in Fleetwood Mac after Peter Green left. Oddly enough, Welch also played with Steve Marriott and Murray Head, the actor-singer, who was very popular, British actor-singer, very popular, I think, later on with Andrew Lloyd Webber's Chess. Is that Andrew Lloyd Webber, Chess? Anyway, so that was that. Agitation Free, the German band featuring Christopher Frank, appears again, and You Play For Us Today. It's almost demanding that we play for them. It should have been We Play For You Today. Mogul Trash or Thrash, I say both because I've seen mentions of the band as both. That was with John Wetton and Brian Auger. They appear again. Elegy is the song. Arc was next. Let Your Love Run Through. British prog rock band with elements of hard rock. We recorded one album in 1971. At This, it was on Decca. The song was from there. Art Bears are next. Morris Dancing, but Morris is spelled Moeris. We're a British avant-garde group formed in '78 with Chris Cutler, Fred Frith, and Dagmar Krause. Oddly enough, former Fairport Convention guitarist Richard Thompson rumored to appear on this tune. I'm not sure if that's true. Later on, Frith would join forces with Henry Kaiser and Thompson in another band, another kind of avant-garde experimental rock strangeness. Jerusalem reappear with Eternity. I mentioned Jerusalem before. Beckett, Life Shadows, the tune. British band formed in '70. They only released one album in 1974. More hard rock than prog. The original, it's interesting, the original singer was named the original singer had passed away in a car crash. He was replaced by Terry Wilson Slessor. So after Beckett as a band just couldn't get a signing and really go beyond that one album in '74, he became the lead singer with a band called Geordie, replacing Brian Johnson, who went on to join AC/DC. Ashcan again makes an appearance with a song called Going Home, and it's more of a bluesy rock thing. Junior's Eyes is next. Mr. Golden Trumpet Player. It's already sounds proggy, right? Mick Wayne, a British band created by guitarist Mick Wayne in '68. Battersea Power Station was the lone album released in 1969, but they also did a number of singles that failed to storm the charts. Mick Wayne later joined David Bowie's band, and interestingly enough, Rick Wakeman and Tony Visconti, who were working with Bowie at some point in time in the early years, produced a couple of Junior's Eyes singles. Mick Wayne stayed in Bowie's touring band, actually appears on Space Oddity, and other things. Other member of Junior's Eyes was Tim Renwick. His name sounds familiar, right? He went on to be in Sutherland Brothers and Quiver, and was most recently in David Gilmour's touring band for his live performances. So there's a lot of information there, but Junior's Eyes was the band. Affinity again makes another appearance. Eli Is Coming. It's not a redo of the song, made famous by Laura Nyro. Again, Affinity were a British jazz rock psych band, 68-72. Eroc is next. Klein Eva. Eroc was a stage name for Joachim Heinz Ehrig. He was a drummer and band leader for Grobschnitt. They're very popular. They've released a number of albums. Joachim Heinz decided to call himself Eroc, E-R-O-C. All right. And he had a solo career. He released albums in 75, 76, 79, and 82. He also had another stage name, Metronome. and Brain. Yes, this is true. He also recorded under those names and released albums titled Brain and Metronome. I found it a very interesting sound. If you're familiar with Grobschnitt, they're kind of melodic. They're proggy. They're a German band with melodic, proggy, industrial, pre-industrial sound as well. Not as harsh as some other stuff. That's your takeaway from that. We're up to the last disc. Beggars Opera appears on here. The song is called Think. Scottish prog band, I mentioned them before, I believe. They were the band that were compared to the Nice and Deep Purple. Next we have Sunday, the band called Sunday. Sad Man Reaching Utopia. Great title. They were a British band, actually from Scotland. And so Scottish, sorry about that. They made only one album in 1972, the self-titled effort Sunday, which I've seen on eBay. So some of these older recordings still bounce around. I don't know if it got released here in the U.S. or if the album I had seen listed on eBay. Not shilling for them, by the way, but I do recall seeing that. Was a UK release. Little is known about this band. Past the dissolution of the band. Frupp is next. F-R-U-U-P-P, Song for Thought. All I could find out was that they were an Irish prog rock band who released 4 albums, which is quite a feat between 73 and 75. So what do they sound like? Very proggy, very melodic. Kind of think of some of Pendragon's more popular, cheerful moments. It's the thing that came to my mind. The Battered Ornaments is next. Love that damn title. Staggered is the name of the song. This one's really interesting because this is a really obscure band. Pete Brown, famously known for writing lyrics for Cream, formed a band called Pete Brown and his Battered Ornaments in '68. In '69, the band just became Battered Ornaments and released 2 albums, A Meal You Can Shake Hands With in the Dark and Mantelpiece. People of note in this band were Dick Hextall-Smith, the sax player who later worked with many jazz rock outfits, jazz blues outfits, including John Mayall. Chris Spedding was a guitar player. This is an interesting thing. Chris Spedding eventually went on to work with a lot of new wave and even punk acts. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. The Battered Ornaments is a Rolling Stones link. Were due to support the Rolling Stones at Hyde Park, but Pete Brown was apparently notoriously difficult. I don't want to make any assumptions of what that refers to, and he was thrown out of his own band, hence they never supported the Stones. Apparently, Chris Spedding went into the studio, re-recorded Mantelpiece after Brown was dismissed, and there's another version of Mantelpiece out there, so guys who really are into collecting strange, obscure things, go for it. Eroc, I mentioned him earlier, pardon me, returns with the one single word, Horrorgall. It's horror, G-O-L-L. He was he is Joachim Heinz Erik, drummer, band leader for Grobschnitt, who had a career under a variety of names. Next we have Ginger Baker's Air Force. We Free Kings is the song title. Interesting that the box set kind of closes out, and nearly closes out with this thing going on here. So Ginger Baker, as everyone knows, was in Cream and Blind Faith, amongst other bands. But this was like his thing here. Junior Baker's Air Force formed in 1969 after the disbandment of Blind Faith, the other supergroup that only recorded one album. And the original lineup for Air Force featured Baker, Steve Winwood on organs and vocals, Rick Gretsch, also from Traffic, on violin and bass, Denny Lane, later Paul McCartney's wings and formerly of the Moody Blues, on guitar, Alan White from Yes, Chris Wood, another member from Traffic, on sax and flute, and they were a interesting band. I mean, there was just too many band members. It was just like, if anyone remembers the Graham Bond organization, Graham Bond was another guy who came from the British R&B scene, and then when psychedelia and progressive rock started making inroads into British music, had these big bands, and the sound was all over the place. It really didn't cohere into a sound that like brought you in. But not to say that there haven't been bands that did that, but Ginger Baker's Air Force recorded 2 albums in 1970 and toured, and there's a resulting 1 or 2 live albums out there from this thing. We're getting toward the end of the set. We have a song from Jane, German band. The song is called Together. I quite like Jane. Kind of melodious, symphonic, hard rock, but being German, they have this deep, powerful sound. The vocals are great. Some people have compared them to Pink Floyd. They have an interesting history, and I found it a bit too long to get into, as I wanted to cut this at 40 minutes, one of the longer episodes. But I really like this. Jane appears on this, and I already have quite a few Jane recordings. I'm going to mention them later on, and I highly recommend people checking out the German band Jane. They recorded albums from 72 to 86, but 2 live recordings in 89 and 90, so they even might still be out there, I'm not sure, in reunited versions. Grobschnitt actually appears. Eroc from that band, it appeared on this box set 3 or 4 times. So here's a song called Traveling, actually taken from a Grobschnitt album. They existed between 70 and 89, and then there were various times they reunited for live performances and appeared on other compilations. Pardon me. Grobschnitt, they're very popular. They have a following, as I've said before. They're one of the German bands that are not really krautrock. They have psychedelic moments, progressive sounds, symphonic sounds, and they even crossed over into full-on pop rock. I don't know whether it's a joke, whether it's a sense of humor that they were working with, but because those poppy songs have ridiculously silly lyrics, those attempts went nowhere. And Eroc was an early member of Grobschnitt, so Grobschnitt appears. Last tune on this box set features Jasper Wrath, and the tune is called Autumn Odyssey. Jasper Wrath was a prog band from New Haven, Connecticut, and they were active throughout the 1970s, not really making any notable dent in the music world. They recorded they recorded their first album in 1971. They kept trying to make it. There are a number of Jasper Wrath albums out there. Interestingly enough, members of Jasper Wrath, after the dissolution of that band, would go on to be in a 1980s band called Archangel, which would have some success on the hard rock circuit. And eventually, Archangel members joined the glam metal band House of Lords. Everybody, I think some people might remember them. They were kind of a melodic metal band. And that closes out a 6-box Krautrock and Progressive Box Set, The Secret Archives. Now you know what's in it, and I think it's fun. I think it's, if you can get it for a good price, I recommend it. I will be returning soon with the much promised Pink Floyd show. I'm going to speak about more than likely mention some things about Pink Floyd, but you can certainly find history of Pink Floyd on the internet or in book form, published book form. I'm going to be talking about the albums, and so it won't be such a long show. This was a special show, 6 discs, and each disc has about 10 to 15 more or less songs on it, so that's why this was a little long. Be safe out there. I'll see you all again soon.